I did notice that was very. Now I keep my phone off during the night, so I actually saw it when I wasn't actually going to wake up till 6, but at 5 I woke up to go to the bathroom and for some reason looked at the phone and went, Luke has already texted me, isn't it like 5? So
yeah,
I did see that was very, but I just looked at it when I was going to the bathroom at 5 o'clock.
I was driving back from Nebraska and I stopped in Paducah, Kentucky, and spent the night and got up about 3:30 this morning. Anyway, we're broadcasting. Nobody gives a shit about any of that. So you ready to rock?
I am ready to go.
Hey again, everybody, and welcome into Talking Tuscaloosa. Luke Robinson, along with Jimmy Stein, as always. Jimmy, how are you today?
Doing good. Rolling Tide. Roll Tide.
Or Row Tide. Row Tide.
Yep.
You know, I don't know if you feel the same way, okay? But ever since Tua trotted out there and did his thing on Saturday night, I have been practically giddily orgasmic looking forward to the next time we get to see him play.
I'm not watching the games with you.
It gets wild, man.
That sounds like a party. It's very. I'm in the same way. I'm like super excited and also not surprised, if that makes sense. You're not surprised Tua was that great, were you?
No, I'm not surprised, but the fact
still fun to watch.
No, here's the thing. Okay, as a fan of college football, if you have a team, everybody on your team you think has potential to be an All-American. For instance, when you talk to an Alabama guy, somebody brings up, I don't know, Alex Leatherwood. You're like, oh, that guy, he can be great because you automatically assume the best. You know, if you're talking to an Auburn guy, they'll say, oh, Bobby Whitlow, man, he's the shit. I mean, did you see he scored a touchdown in the Washington game? It doesn't matter that, you know, he had 20 or 30 yards for the whole game. He scored that one touchdown, and people are like, he's going to be the man. He's going to be the man because that's what fans do. So we as fans have been saying so many great things about Tua. We've said them on this podcast. There have been some national people that have certainly lauded him with praise too, especially after the national championship game. But there were some reservations, and for him to go out and do what he did, and really kind of in a limited fashion, he only threw 16 passes, but for everybody to see in those 16 passes, okay, this guy is like All-American, easily potential. It validates what we thought about him. It makes me that much happier. The problem is now my expectations have gone from lofty to unreasonable for this cat. I mean,
people had unreasonable expectations all season. You're just sort of, quote, late to that party, although I'm with you 100%. The expectations were out of control way before they should have been. Now they're out of control even when it makes more logical sense for them to be out of control. I mean, now everybody should get the expectations, like you're saying. Everybody should get that now, but still not really fair to Tua. I think we should. There's going to be a game or moments that remind us that he isn't an experienced player. My fear, if you want to call it a fear, is that's going to happen in Oxford because Tua has yet to play in an SEC road game environment. But that being said, if we're betting, I think he's going to do just fine. But
well, here's the thing: which is more stressful, coming in down 13 points in the national championship game in a 60-40 Georgia crowd with every eyeball in the country on you, or playing in Oxford, Mississippi in front of about 52,000.
Georgia for sure, but they're different. They're a little different, and let's see how he handles it when it's different. No doubt the Georgia thing was more pressure, but I mean, I've seen Tua comment on that particular thing. I remember Tua saying anyway, and of course it's just an interview, but saying I didn't feel much pressure. I was just so happy that I was getting the opportunity to play, and I didn't feel pressure for that reason. I was just excited to play. If he 100% means that and is just not admitting to the nerves, if he just means that, maybe the Oxford thing will be different. But I'll tell you one thing that's really different, and I don't care what the environment is, Georgia's 2017 defense versus Ole Miss's 2018 defense. he's going to find a much easier defense to deal with at Oxford, no matter what the stadium and the home crowd is like. And trust me, I'd rather play in a tough environment against shitty players than play in a neutral environment against really good players, right?
Yeah, you can play Purdue at the Tallapoosa County trash dump, or you can play Oklahoma in your backyard. I'm taking Purdue all day. But what I was saying earlier was, okay, we all recognize that Saban is an automated pimping, slapping machine. I mean, he just pimp slaps the crap out of everybody he comes in touch with. We understand that, okay?
He just shits out another player.
He is incredible. But there is the Saban's joyless murder ball. There is some truth to that. Not that it's joyless. I think all Alabama fans enjoy winning. Certainly, I do too. But there is less joy than, say, okay, when we go out there and we pummel some of these teams, you know, we enjoy it, we like it, we expect it, it's fun because it's our team. But there hadn't been anybody that I was dying to see, you know, play. Amari was kind of that way, where he was so exciting and electric, but he was so polished. The thing about Tua is he's so incredibly dynamic. You don't know what's coming next. I'm rewatching the Louisville game right now. That first touchdown pass, who in God's green earth makes that throw, man? That's in the air. You throw it into one place Jerry Jeudy can get it. It's like he and Jerry Jeudy were communicating via cans with a string between them, saying, I'm going to throw it here. You just fake your guy out. And then when count to 6, and when you say 6, turn around. There the ball is.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of like Brett Favre, was kind of what it reminded me of.
I think the person he's most like in terms of my anticipation to see him play is David Palmer. Not that he plays like Palmer,
right?
But every time Palmer took the field, you knew he was going to do something cool, but you didn't know what. Like, I knew Amari would probably score 3 touchdowns a few times, and I knew he could toast his guy. But Tua's going to put moves on people. He's going to put passes by defensive backs and linebackers that you don't understand in the physical realm how that works.
Well,
he's
we're so new.
We can't fathom.
We're so new. We're so overdue for a quarterback like Tua. We were so overdue, and now that it's finally gotten here, it's almost like the gods are paying us in triplicate. Because we're so overdue. I mean, we not only have finally got the first-round quarterback we've been waiting on since the mid-1970s.
That's true.
Lots of people listening to this podcast weren't alive then, you know. And it was the last time we had a quarterback at Alabama that was drafted the first round, Richard Todd. It's like a name that young people won't know, but he was the last first-round quarterback, and it's taken this long. And now, boy, do we have one now.
It's like a friend of yours or a relative of yours died and left you a little bit of money, and you're like, okay, you know, not bad. I mean, that's what Alabama. And then come to find out, oh shit, that relative also had some Apple stock he bought in the early '80s, and it all comes to you, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know he had this. And then 2 years later, they're like, oh shit, he only had 1,000 shares of Apple stock that he paid $2 a share for, and now you're worth $2 billion. That's what this feels like running into a quarterback like this. But he just makes me excited. Like, I'm always excited for games, but I was excited in the sense that, okay, whose ass are we going to beat this week? Okay, here we go. This is great. We're beating their ass. And then occasionally we'd lose, and we'd just look around all puzzled, like, that's not supposed to happen. But now we get to watch the game and see somebody incredibly, incredibly dynamic and that do some things we've never seen before.
It's a great thing that Nick Saban doesn't listen to our podcast. He doesn't listen to
Are you there,
stuff.
Jimmy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Jimmy, you cut out on me. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
Did you hit your button or something?
Nope. I don't know what happened.
Maybe
the same thing happened last week, right?
Somebody calls my phone or something. I don't know. All right, I'm going to shoot.
Do you hear me now?
I don't want to cut it off and cut it back on. I'm afraid I'm going to have to, though. Am I going to have to do that? You there still? Nod your head if you're there. I can see you. Talk. Can you hear me now? Shoot. Hang on a second. Let me see. Ha 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 ha. Okay, I'm gonna have to say something again. Oh shit. Come on back, Jimmy. I think Jimmy's going to come back. I hope so. I'm going to invite Jimmy. Let's see if Jimmy comes back, everybody. Here I am inviting Jimmy. This is exciting podcasting. No need for fan mail. I totally get it. I have just invited Jimmy again. Let's see if it works. And still waiting here on Talking Tuscaloosa. Go out there and buy some Pringles. Tell them you heard it on Talking Tuscaloosa. Still waiting on Jimmy. I have re-invited him yet again. And we'll see what happens. Here he comes. Let's see if Jimmy's here.
I'm here.
Hey, Jimmy works.
Friend of the podcast, Jamie Barnes, was telling me that he could hear us the whole time.
Yeah, he said I could hear you both, but I couldn't hear you. I don't know why. That's so weird.
Okay. Well, what I was saying is couldn't agree more about the Tua thing. I feel like we're really being paid back for all those years without having a first-round quarterback. Now we've really got someone special, and it's great. I'm going to enjoy every second of it. I was saying how Nick doesn't listen to the podcast. I'm glad he doesn't, because he would kill me for saying this, but one of the joys of the Saban era, and there are many, but one of the joys is, think of this. I know it's Arkansas State, but Alabama in the past has lost to Louisiana Monroe. We have lost to Central Florida. We lost to Louisiana Tech twice in a row under Mike Dubose. We didn't really lose games we shouldn't under Gene Stallings. Not any significant, horrible non-conference losses, but Bill Curry, lost to Memphis. I'm just saying we have lost some really bad to some really bad teams. Nick Saban has eliminated the embarrassing loss. He's eliminated. We have no chance of losing Saturday. Everyone else playing college football, everyone else has a chance to lose. Oklahoma might lose to UCLA. 1% chance, 2% chance, I don't know. Clemson could lose to Texas A&M. Auburn is playing Alabama State. Are they going to lose? No. But I'll say this. Alabama State's got a better chance to beat Auburn than Arkansas State has to beat Alabama. I mean,
I agree.
I'm just saying we have no chance to lose, and it's unfathomable that we're in that position. And most of that's Nick. And now we have Tua. I saw a stat earlier. My favorite stat for this week is, and I wish I could quote it exactly. I'm stealing it from somebody else. I saw it on a message board, but I think it's true. In this, when we have played an overmatched non-conference team in week 2 or week 3 under Nick, we are 1-7 against the spread in that scenario. 1-7. This has been traditionally a letdown week for us. We win the game, yes, but we don't cover the spread and don't typically play great. I'm very interested to see what we look like in a traditional letdown scenario with Tua at quarterback. I'm thinking that the letdown isn't going to look like that anymore because Tua's excited to play. Arkansas State is not good on defense. And I think even on autopilot, Tua's going to score touchdowns on most possessions. So I like Alabama to win this week. I was pretty close at predicting the score last week. I hope I'm close again. I'm going 49-14 this week over Arkansas
we score more
State.
than we scored last week because here's the thing. You're right about that. See, Tua has been named the starter now, and I don't know if Saban backed into this thing or played it brilliantly. I'm going to go played it brilliantly. But he's backed into this situation where he's like, okay, y'all told me this. Tua's the starter, so y'all know he's got to get a shitload of reps. So, if Tua had been in there, instead of Jalen being thrown in there for those few series just to reaffirm what we already knew, then Alabama scores on those drives that we didn't score on when Jalen was in there. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
So I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Tua probably plays, even if memory serves, even against Auburn when we were up 42-0 in 2012, our starters came back out for the first drive.
Right.
I think that's correct. And we scored again. So it was 49-0. And so then they took them out. So I'd be kind of shocked if Tua doesn't play the whole first half into the third quarter. And then maybe the most interesting thing, just like it was interesting to see who was going to start this week, it's going to be pretty interesting to see who the backup is. And
Right.
tell me if you felt this way. What is the human equivalent of wah, wah? Because that's what Jalen was when he came into the game. That was my shot at a sound effect, by the way. I don't know if it worked.
It's pretty good. A couple things. I mean, to me, I wouldn't go the wah route necessarily.
Oh, mine was a lot better than that. Come on.
Well, you put real effort. You put real effort into it. That was a no effort wah. That was a no effort. Yours was so good. I'm not even a full effort one would still be short.
And let me say, I love Jalen Hurts, by the way. I love Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, we're not bashing Jalen. I think part of what you're saying is Tua was playing so well that it was almost painful to take him out because he was playing so great. That was a big part of it, regardless of what Jalen did, unless he went in there and did exactly what Tua was doing, which of course he wasn't going to do. I think part of it is that. And part of it was the fact that, we hadn't punted at all. We just touchdown. And then we had the turnover that wasn't Tua's fault. That was Devontae's fault. But the only drive that Tua had played and we hadn't scored a touchdown was a Devontae fumble in the red zone, by the way. I think he fumbled around the 20-yard line. But one thing about Jalen's drives, and again, and I know the comeback to this, I can already hear your comeback to this going, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that happens when Jalen is a quarterback, and it just flowed more smoothly with Tua. And you'd be correct to say that. But I will say that in Jalen's 2 first half drives, the first, he had a first down and Irv Smith dropped the ball. I mean, that was just an Irv Smith drop. If Irv doesn't drop that ball, does that drive in differently? I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but I'm just saying we had to punt, and one of the reasons we had to punt is because Irv Smith dropped a ball that he should have caught. And then on the next drive, when Jalen had to punt again, we had third down, made the first down, but Ross Piersbaker got downfield too far. They called him for that. Good call, bad call. But we're called for a penalty, and what would have been a first down and extended the drive. Instead, we had to run the third down play again because Ross had crossed the line. So I would say that both of those drives ended on things that you could not specifically point to Jalen and say, bad Jalen, bad play. Now, that being said, Tua was never really getting to third down because he was just zooming the ball down the field. And I'm not making a comparison to say, oh, well, Jalen was playing just as good as Tua. I'm just saying that the things that ended those Jalen drives weren't necessarily horrible plays on Jalen. And then beyond that, there's this weird thing. Maybe this was Jalen's fault or maybe not. But did you notice – I think it was those 2 drives as well. On the third down plays that ended the drives, we had 3rd and 3, which is automatically Jalen's going to run for the first down call. But instead, we throw deep down the sideline on 3rd and 3. And of course, it's incomplete. And then the next time around, we had 3rd and long. And we run an option play on like 3rd and 13. And I'm like, what are those calls? It was the only 2 times in the entire game that I was like, what are they doing?
Okay. Listen, let me say a couple things. First of all, I think that's what I meant with my wah is that, see, here's the thing. I believe this truly. Jalen's pass to Irv Smith was great. Hit him right in the numbers.
Yeah, sure.
But I think that the mood crashed so much that the players kind of got distracted. I think, look, if Tua throws that pass, I think Irv catches it. He caught one more difficult than that later.
He did.
And it's not because they don't like Jalen Hurts, but I think that they have been conditioned through 2 years of, man, he's not going to put it where I need it to be put. Right. And I'm not going to be able to catch it. And so they already get frustrated. It's kind of like, look, everybody, has a friend that they're not really friends with, that the other friend thinks they're better friends with. And when that person calls, you always know they need something or they want to ask a favor. And so every time you see their name on your caller ID, you're like, oh, shit. and you pick it up anyway, and you're like, oh my God, okay. And he's like, hey man, what's up? What's up? Hey, can I borrow $20? You know, and you're like, God damn it. I mean, just you don't really want to know what's up. And that's kind of the way it is. It's like you're still friends with him, but you're like, you don't feel like. And so when he does do something for you, when this friend says, hey man, here's that $20 back, you're like, holy shit. I can't, you don't even know how to react. You're like, I don't even know should I put it in my wallet? Should I put it in my pocket? Should I just throw it in the air? You know, I think it's kind of like all the players were just a little deflated. And the reversal is true with Tua. When Tua's in there, they're like, this guy's going to do something fantastic, and I want to be a part of it. Whereas most of Jalen's fantastic things have been done with his legs. I mean, that's just the truth. And then as far as the play calling, I think you're right. If we were playing Auburn or Georgia or LSU, I think our play calling is different in those scenarios. We were toying with Louisville, and I think they said, okay, let's try this in this scenario and see if it works. Because if, you know, let me tell you, there was also a deep pass, that deep pass you're talking about to Jerry Jeudy. Mm-hmm. It was so far off.
It was out of bounds, I think.
It was brutal. It was tough to watch. It was like watching a bad punt. And and Jeudy turned around, and I swear, I'm just speaking truthfully.
There might have been a miscommunication.
It felt like if Tua throws that's a touchdown. He had his man beat. He was beat badly. I have a hard time
believing that that's exactly either what was called, or did Jalen check to that, or it just didn't feel like the right call. And yeah, it was a terrible pass, and Jeudy was looking back, I think part exasperated by where was that ball, and secondly, why were you throwing it to me when you were supposed to be just keeping it and running around the right end?
Well, and maybe
I don't know. I mean,
maybe part of it is that Jalen was forcing the issue a little bit, because I'll tell you what, if I were Jalen, we talk about the team. We talk about the team being maybe they lost a little confidence when Jalen comes in. I think deflated may be the wrong word, but if I were Jalen, and you can't help, he's a competitor, you can't help but look out there and see what Tua does on those first few drives, and we would have scored on every drive he had except Devontae Smith fumbled. So you can't help but look out there and go, holy cow, I'm watching magic happen.
He had to be pressing.
And so you got to press.
He needs to understand for his own confidence that he got Wally pipped.
He did
more than he just flat out lost a job, or he needs to be talked into that anyway. I mean, in the sense that he's Wally Pipp, the everyday Yankees first baseman, and then one day he gets sick and he's replaced by a 21-year-old guy named Lou Gehrig, who then started at first base for 1,400 games in a row or whatever the record was, because Lou Gehrig's one of the great first basemen ever walked the earth, and that's what's happened to Jalen here, and he needs to hopefully take when he transfers. Take the good experience with him and just realize, hey, everything was going great and everybody was happy. And then Lou Gehrig shows up and Wally Pipp's got to go play first base somewhere else because Lou Gehrig showed up. Hopefully it's that situation.
If you're dating somebody who's pretty good looking and pretty nice, and she's got a few flaws, but you overlook them, and you've been dating maybe, let's say, 2 years, and then Brooklyn Decker comes by and says, you know what? I kind of got a thing for you. I want to make it work. Would you please?
I like short, quirky, bald men.
Check me out naked, and let's see if we can make this thing happen. You know what you're doing? You're going out with Brooklyn Decker.
Begging for Andy Roddick's forgiveness?
Oh, you're not going to even – let me tell you what. If Brooklyn Decker walks into your room, you're going to say, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So I'm just
first, I complimented her name. That's like the coolest hot chick name ever. Brooklyn is a cool hot chick name.
It is. But my point is, when you're Jalen Hurts is a certified badass, but this Tua is looking like a generational all-timer, and it's not just one sucks and one's great. That's not what it is. They are both great, but Tua is in a different league, and everybody is seeing it.
Doubt.
And I don't mean it as a shot at Jalen Hurts. I love Jalen Hurts. I want him to stay at Alabama, not because I'm selfish, but because I think here. Let me tell you what, if Jalen Hurts stays here and he does graduate, and let's say he doesn't transfer, which won't happen, but let's say he doesn't, Can you imagine how legendary his ass will be for just hanging around? And if he just said some things like, you know what, I just enjoy winning championships, and I want to be here for my brothers, and I'm going to try and, I'm going to still go to the NFL and see if that works. But I just want to be here and be a part of this environment.
He would be a legend. He'd be a legend. And I'd also say that there's a very good chance, of knowing football like we do, that if he did stay at some point this season, at some point next season, a play, a series, a game, a month, there's a good chance that Alabama's going to need him. And then what a hero, Tua, turns an ankle and can't play in the second half against LSU, and we're down 10-7. And Jalen, who hadn't played in a year and a half, comes off the bench and wins the game. I mean, they'd build a statue to that guy, a statue.
Holy hell! Let me tell you this: I pity the fool who, even inadvertently, hurts Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh yeah,
he won't have a tree for 20 acres.
Oh, I mean, Tua got hurt Saturday night, and it was on the first drive, right? And I had 3 heart attacks, and that's
it was scary.
And that's at a point in the game where you don't know that Tua is the Brooklyn Decker of quarterbacks. Yeah. I mean, you don't know that. I mean, it's just the first drive, and I'm just saying, so I think the fact that Tua got shaken up to the point that managers and trainers had to come onto the field and do a little concussion test quickly is proof of why we don't want Jalen to leave, and why I hope that he doesn't. That being said, I'm nearly 100% sure he's going to leave when the season's over, and I wouldn't rule out him leaving before the season is over if Nick and his family can't reach some sort of an agreement about this redshirt situation. And I hope this is the way I am, and I know I'm in the minority, Luke. I know I'm probably in the minority here on Talking Tuscaloosa with you and Lawrence against me on this. In terms of the Jalen redshirt story, while I agree it's interesting, and while I agree it's a huge decision that has to be made both for Alabama and for Jalen, I'm less interested in that as I am at what's going on the field. I mean, I'd rather talk about who's going to play, who's in the lineup, the matchup against Arkansas State, then the matchup against Ole Miss. To me, the off-the-field stuff like that is always secondary to me in terms of, I'm much more excited about Tua and how well he's played and the on-the-field stuff than to get all caught up in the soap opera of what's going to go on with the number 2 quarterback, because that's what Jalen is right now. He is the number 2 quarterback. He's the backup to Tua. And I'm grateful for that, but it's just not a compelling story to me. Yet I feel like the message boards and the podcasts and the talk radio is going to be all about Jalen and his red shirting until that goes away.
Yeah, that's unavoidable. I mean, yep. It's part of the deal, just like Saban has to deal with, hey, their roster is stacked. Don't go over there in recruiting. I mean, it comes with the territory. There's a yin and yang to everything. We can't have Tua without having some situation like this. And so, but there's no better coach to handle it than Nick Saban. Obviously. Maria Taylor may disagree. But even though I thought that was a little bit overblown, man, I mean, there were some people just there's some people looking for flaws here. And I mean, it was a flaw. It was a screw up, and I'm glad he apologized. But, it was
a bigger story because it was Nick Saban.
Correct.
And because it was about the issue of the summer. It was the issue of the summer in college football. Tua Jalen. And it's Nick Saban and the issue of the summer. And there is some sort of Alabama fans, we've learned to enjoy. We just beat an ACC team 51-14. No, it's not Clemson. No, it's not Florida State. But we beat an ACC team 51-14.
We beat Florida State worse.
We would have. For sure.
I am dead serious. We would have beaten Florida State, whatever you want to, just a little bit.
So people are fascinated with the Nick Saban who is never happy. The Nick that's in a bad, pissed off, I'm ready to shit down your neck hole after ripping your head off, despite winning a game by 6 touchdowns. I think people are fascinated by that Nick, and that's part of the reason that this was such a massive story. And I didn't think the apology was necessary myself, but I'm glad he did, because again, the more of the human side we can show to Nick Saban, the better it is for recruiting, the better it is for his legacy, the better it is for Alabama. And I think it's totally human to say, got caught up in the moment, said something I shouldn't have, I apologize. Maria's a pro. She has my utmost respect. And I'm sorry for the way that came across. I was frustrated with several things, and I took it out on, and it appeared that I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair.
Yeah, first of all, though, in his apology, he said, I spoke to Marie. And secondly, he said we could have handled this better.
That's because we made him apologize.
But no, here's the thing. And I was like, that's right. I could have done more. I'm sorry, Coach. I mean, whatever you say, buddy, I didn't do enough. That's on me.
Travis Reier, I'll give all credit to Travis, who does a great job covering Alabama. I think I was in some department store the next morning with the wife and reading through Twitter, and somebody somewhere had made a joke about Nick screaming at Terry Saban over breakfast, and Travis Reier made the innocuous comment of, no, I think that conversation probably went a lot different, hinting that, when Nick talked to Miss Terry the next morning, Miss Terry was probably telling him, you get your ass on that phone and you call that girl and you tell her you're sorry. Because Travis knows Nick and Terry Saban and knows that dynamic as well as anyone. And when I read that, I became 1,000,000% convinced in 2 seconds. Like, Travis is right. Terry's going to make him call and apologize, and that's exactly what happened. Because Nick didn't even deny at the press conference that it was really Terry that made him do it, and it was so predictable. And credit to Travis for being the first one to point that out.
And it was funny yesterday. I drove to Nebraska and back, left Monday, came back this morning. But it's a long freaking way, by the way. But
you participated in as many football games as Adrian Martinez and Scott Frost did in Nebraska this week.
I swear to God, that's what all they were talking about. They couldn't believe it. They're so mad. They're so ready to have this thing kick off. But anyway, so I was listening to Dan Le Batard some, and Le Batard was like, what exactly does make Nick Saban happy? He said, you just pummeled an ACC opponent, Bobby Petrino. You made him wear another neck brace. And he said, yet you are still so violently unhappy that you essentially dog cuss a sweet, innocent sideline reporter. And he said, put it on the poll. Does sex make Nick Saban happy? I mean, so they had a poll if sex makes Nick Saban happy. I mean, and I was just rolling because, awesome. I mean, it is kind of true. I mean, they were like, and he went on and on. He was like, you have every advantage possible. You live in a state where you were easily the most visible person over the governor. He said, and the next most visible person is probably your wife. He said, you are the most recognizable person in the state. You have money, all the money you could possibly want. You have everything at your disposal. You've got a billion. Your strength coach makes over $1 million. He said, what exactly else do you want? He said, can't you just be happy? And my argument the whole time listening to this, I was smiling thinking, no, he cannot be happy. And don't you change a damn thing.
That's right. These things that Le Batard was asking, which are normal, sensible questions, I tortured myself for the first 3 years. Nick was our head coach here before you got to really know him and accept him for what he is. For 3 years, I tortured myself with the same questions. But the fact of the matter is, his greatness stems from that.
Exactly.
His greatness stems from that. Extraordinary people have extraordinary qualities. If Nick's reaction to everything was what you'd expect, he'd be ordinary. And if anything, he has proven he's not ordinary. He's the greatest football coach, and I'm saying it more adamantly than ever. And all it's going to take is one more championship for me to scream it from the top of the mountains. Nick Saban's not the greatest college football coach of all time. He's the greatest football coach of all time. And I think if he wins more than one more national title, these arguments about where he ranks with Bear Bryant and Frank Leahy and Switzer and people that are, as far as I'm concerned, were the black and white TV era. Nick doesn't belong in that conversation. He belongs in the conversation with who's the greatest coach ever: John Wooden, Nick Saban, Casey Stengel, Red Auerbach, Mike Krzyzewski. He's on that list. Not the greatest college football coaches of all time. That's too mundane if he wins a couple more titles. It's where does he rank among the greatest coaches of any sport anywhere in the history of the world? That's the list he belongs on. No, and it's because, and why? Because when he beats the shit out of somebody 51-14, he starts off cussing poor Maria Taylor out. That's why. That's why. That's why. And it makes no sense to the rest of us because we're ordinary people. We're just ordinary people. Only Nick can understand this because, Nick's in his element sitting there talking with Kobe Bryant. Two of the, you have to put two goats in the room so they can speak to each other in the same language that they understand.
It was funny, like Kobe and Saban in there, and they were talking, and I mean, I'm sitting here, my non-grade ass was sitting there listening, like, I don't know what they're saying, but it looks awesome. I don't even understand the words that are coming out of their mouth.
They sat there nodding their heads at each other. They'd probably talk for 3 straight weeks before either one of them would disagree with something the other one said because they're like, hey, I know how you work, mofo. I work the same way.
I mean, it was amazing.
Their brains are wired the same because they're the greatest. They're on the short list of the greatest to ever do what they do.
Well, we know Kobe enjoys sex, so maybe Saban does too. Okay. Really quickly, how about making a statement, Deontay Thompson? Why don't you go ahead and make one?
And see, we could spend a whole nother podcast on me waxing poetic about 14.
He was a fucking star. Oh, did I just say that? I'm sorry.
But he was.
If you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to slip up and say that every now and again.
No one was surprised. And I just said mofo a second ago. That's close.
It's essentially the same thing. You're just making me say, let me stop you right there. Louis C.K. had a great bit.
I know what you're about to say.
About the N-word. And he said, I don't hate, no, not, and he said the N-word. He said, I don't hate that word. He said, I hate it when people say the N-word. He said, because it's lazy. And he said, it's sorry. And he said, all you're doing is saying a word that's making me think of the word.
Now I got to think the word.
He said, you say it.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your fault for saying it. Now I got to think it.
Oh my God! They just replayed the Jalen Hurts to Irv Smith pass. It was a better pass than I even thought it was. Holy
see, it's
cow.
a first down, and the series extends. But see, this is what happens when the excitement for Tua just takes over. And I'm not saying that because Irv should have caught the ball that Jalen should have played more. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, can we not just, in the rush to coronate Tua, do we have to squash Jalen? I mean, it wasn't, if Irv catches the ball, maybe we score on that drive. No, and maybe we're saying that if it's a 50-50 type competition. But it's not a 50-50 type competition. Tua's way better. Tua needs to be the starter. Tua's the best player. The best player needs to play. I'm just saying, in this rush to crown the sweet prince, as we're now calling him, it's like people didn't notice that really, it wasn't Jalen's fault. We didn't, keep the drive alive. And the next third down, on another third down play, we make a first down. He gets called back because Pierce Baker is, 3 yards downfield.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Deontay Thompson.
Poetic about Deontay. How about this statement? Is it going too far? Yes, this is going too far. But I will put Deontay's performance on the short list. Best defensive performances by an Alabama defender in a game in the Saban era. And I'm too done. We need our friend of the show, Gary Rim, to remind us what other performances belong in that list. But I'm just saying it's among the best single game performances by an Alabama defensive player in the Saban era, which is saying a lot. That's sort of like saying, as far as Canadian hockey players go, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I thought Deontay was the defensive MVP, and I purposely, and I've never done this before. I'm not one of these Hunter Johnson types on Twitter, but I have at least 3 times this week tweeted about Deontay Thompson and put the Jim Thorpe Award, a link to the Thorpe Award account because I want the Thorpe Award people to know who Deontay Thompson is, because it's not exactly like he had a lot of name recognition going into the year. And I thought that performance was like man, there is no defensive back in the country that's played better than this guy today. And thankfully, I saw somebody on one of the message boards linked an NFL scout saying who has no connection to Alabama saying the exact same thing, that the best defensive back in the country this weekend was Deontay Thompson, and it was kind of a breakdown of Deontay's performance. So hopefully he's getting that attention that he richly deserves, and if he keeps it up, keeps playing like he did this Saturday, it'll be a crime if he's not a first-team All-American and at the Home Depot Awards in Atlanta and maybe having a shot to win that Thorpe because his performance was that good.
It was amazing, and he's got these long-ass arms, man, that just they extend for days. And when he, if he hadn't intercepted that pass, I think would that have been Surtain that would have intercepted it in the end zone?
Maybe so. Yeah. I think when he did, I think Surtain did have good coverage on the play when Deontay came over from his too deep spot to range over and get that ball. I thought the best decision he made all day, speaking of his arms, was his decision before he flew to Orlando when he stopped by the basketball gym and said, "Hey, Dante Hall, can I borrow your arms this weekend?" Those are Dante Hall's arms. Literally. Those are Dante Hall's arms.
Dante was like, "I'm not using them. It's all good." And then
I'm not playing until November.
And then Dante was so pissed the whole game he couldn't clap at all.
He's
the
like,
boy who couldn't clap.
Petty, I'm hungry. Give me some soup. And Petty is like, "I'm not feeding your ass this whole game. You're the stupid ass that gave your arms away. I didn't tell you to give your arms away. I'm not feeding you no soup."
And they were playing poker, and they were like, "It's your deal, Dante." "Oh, sorry."
We're not playing with Dante anymore. He doesn't deal. Or maybe he couldn't reach across the table because he had to switch arms with Deontay. So maybe he's 6'11". He's 6'11" and can't reach the poker pot in the middle of the field, in the middle of the table, because he's got Deontay's short ass arms.
Yeah, that's true. He's got Deontay's arm. He puts those short ass arms on. That'd be funny. Okay. So we got Arkansas State coming up this weekend. You're saying that we're going to score fewer points than we did last.
Yeah, and this is my reasoning. No,
there's a 0% chance that's happening.
Well, this is why. First of all, I said 49. We just scored 51, right? So I'm backing it off by 2 points. It's not exactly like I said, okay, we're only scoring 20. I said 49, which is 2 points less. But this is the reason why I agree with you that the offense is good. Two or three things. Number one, I get the sense there's going to be more of a commitment to the run game. That we're really going to come out and just pound the ball in an effort to kind of get that part of the offense up and going. That could limit the explosiveness in the scoring and make the clock run. But two, despite scoring 51 in the offense, great, we scored on an interception return and a kick return. So the offense scored what against Louisville? 37. So I actually think we score 49 this week, which might be more offensive points, but less than the 51. So 49, and Arkansas State scores 14 because I'm going to say this. I bet this. I just made this up in my head. 14 is the new 11, and by that I mean I think last year Alabama gave up 11 points a game, which led the nation and was unbelievable. I don't think we're quite as good on defense. So I think when we play pretty good offensive teams, we're going to be giving up more in that 14, 17, 20-point range this year. Arkansas State is a good offense. We will play SEC teams not as good on offense as Arkansas State is. Justice Hansen is a legitimate, really good quarterback. I think he's probably one of the top 15, top 20 in the whole country. He definitely an NFL prospect, as good or better than Juwan Pass. Arkansas State has a good offensive system. They play fast. They don't even try to run the ball. They're going to have like 0 rushing yards. They're not even going to try. They're going to throw it, and play fast. And most of the time when they do that, they'll be running about 6 plays and punting. But they're going to throw it a lot, and I think they'll put up decent numbers, and they'll get loose a couple of times. So I say 49-14. What say you?
Oh, I'm going to say 63-17. And Waddle is housing something. Waddle is scoring this week. He's probably good. He wanted to score. He scored. It was a terrible block in the back, but that did not affect the play. He is a – if Tua wasn't on the team, Waddle would be the most exciting player on the squad.
That's definitely true, and not trying to claim credit, me saying something that others weren't already. But if you remember, I think I guaranteed a big play in the Louisville game from Waddle, and there was, arguably more than one. Waddle he's unbelievable. He is unbelievable, and I don't think he's David Palmer because the skill set is different, but he's like David Palmer in several senses. He's an undersized receiver. He's just as dangerous in the return game as he is playing wide receiver. And just like Palmer, when Waddle showed up, he was one of the 10 best players on the team. The day he showed up.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what Palmer was. If Palmer actually might have been the best player on that team the day he showed up. But Waddle is absolutely fantastic. And the Waddle we saw against Louisville is the same Waddle we're going to see for 3 years. He's going to be that good every weekend.
He's a star, man. It's amazing that we have all these receivers that are sophomores, and Smith looked better and faster. Ruggs showed some toughness. Judy had 2 touchdowns and showed an affinity for getting open. And I'm not sure Waddle is the best receiver we got on this squad.
Nope. I mean, I totally agree. He is definitely. It's receivers are tough because you got guys. I mean, comparing Julio Jones to Jalen Waddle, it's very much apples and oranges, isn't it? I know they play the same position, but it's apples and oranges. They're just so different types of players. But I'll say in terms of being an impact wide receiver, Waddle is better today than Judy, Smith, and Ruggs were a year ago. He's better than they were.
Yeah.
He's better than they were a year ago. So yeah, very excited. So 49-14, and you've got it what did you say?
63-17.
630-2.
Yeah, and bet the over, baby.
And then next week, we'll be right back here discussing our very first Southeastern Conference game against a surprisingly good Ole Miss team. I mean, I'm not surprised that their offense was impressive, and I wouldn't necessarily say their defense was impressive, but that was a pretty good win for Ole Miss. That was a pretty good win for Ole Miss.
It was a damn good win for the league.
Surprised me. I thought they would lose, and they won handily.
I'm pleasantly surprised. I never want Auburn to win. I'll be honest, that's the truth. But having the SEC go 13-1, it seemed pretty damn sweet because we knew Tennessee could not win that game. Tennessee is a flaming dumpster fire. We all know it. They just lost Brandon Kennedy, which I hate it for that kid because I like him a lot. He's from Wetumpka, pretty close to me. And I hate it for him, but that's just the way it's going to be for Tennessee this year. I bet the under on their 5.5 wins. So I feel like they may not win this weekend. They got East Tennessee State and Randy Sanders. They may not win. I'm dead serious.
Yeah, I wish I doubt I'll get a chance to watch that game. It's the stupidest thing ever, but a kid that I really liked in recruiting that no one on the planet Earth offered. And I'm sitting here looking at this kid. I watched him play 5 times in high school, a defensive back named Chris Armstrong at Foley. And I remember watching him like 5 times going, this kid needs to be at Tennessee or Florida or Georgia, and no one was offering him.
What does he play?
Defensive safety, and he ends up at East Tennessee. And I'm like, man, I'm going to be disappointed in that Tennessee-East Tennessee game this week if Chris Armstrong or true freshman Foley isn't the best player on the whole field. So I could be saying, how come only me and his mother saw this coming? He was a great player. It still boggles me. He must have had great. Maybe his transcript looked like Afghanistan or something. I don't know. I just know. I thought he was one of the best eyeball test alone. Just eyeball test. I thought he was one of the 5 or 6 best prospects in the Mobile area last year, and his best offer was East Tennessee State. And by the way, I'm not talking about one of my 640-pound specials. This is a safety who's 6'1", 195, who played most of his senior year at quarterback. So this isn't a low profile type. Boy, how did Jimmy pick this? Why does Jimmy think he's good? I mean, he also started at safety since first game of his 10th grade year. So he just must have had really bad grades. That's all I can figure.
I have a feeling like some coaches went to go visit him like, man, we love this kid's tape. Can we see his transcript? And the coach would be like, do what now? You want to see a what now?
Oh, he doesn't go to school here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No. That look, no. Just go by the tape.
Authorities said best leave it unsolved.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to ask for the transcript. No. All right. So we got our predictions in, and we'll just go from there and roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.
Really quickly, Falcons or Eagles today?
I like Falcons to beat the Super Bowl champs. What do you think?
Me too. Falcons in a runaway. Falcons forever.
Whoa,
really
rise up, rise up.
Yeah, rise up, man. All right, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Bye. See you, man.
See you, buddy.